Hello, everyone.
Hello.
With the Oscars only a few weeks away, it's time for our yearly tradition of watching all the Oscar shorts. And Yvette and I, like we do every year, we drove down to our local art house cinema to watch the animated, the live action, the documentaries, and today we're gonna give you our full breakdown on all the shorts and predict which ones we think will win the Oscar. And we'll also give you some key stats along the way. So let's get this started. Yvette, what should we start with?
I say we start with animated because I feel like that was the strongest.
All right, let's start with animated shorts. All right, Yvette, so this block we have stories about regret, traumas, war. So why don't you go ahead and kick us off with the first short?
Sure. The first short is called Our Uniform. It's a 7-minute Iranian film about a young Iranian girl who unfolds her school memories through the fabric and texture of her old school uniform. And I mean that quite literally because the story and animation was composited on top of stop-motion fabric, pieces of fabric of clothing. The film is a breezy reflection on the experience of wearing a hijab at school and the thoughts that are evoked when having to wear one every day. The story was simple, but it was really succinct. It was very sweet. I thought the animation was done really creatively and the technique with the clothing and the fabrics really tied cleverly into the subject of the film.
Yeah, so you like this one?
Yeah, I actually loved it.
Yeah, I liked it as well. Very creative, very unique.
Yeah.
The second short is called 95 Senses. This is from the US. This is actually from the director of Napoleon Dynamite, Jared Hess and Joshua Hess. It's about an inmate, perfectly voiced by Tim Blake Nelson, who reflects on the mistakes he made while facing his own mortality. The film explores 5 different senses, and each sense is illustrated by different animators. But I thought the story and how it kind of flowed together very nicely. I really loved how the short uses senses as a character's kind of portal to recalling these specific memories from his life. In 13 minutes, 95 senses managed to sum up the character's life and his regrets on how he spent his time here with melancholy and humor. The emotion of film is subtle, and so is the animation style, but it's so well written and paced. I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, I really liked it too. It felt really nostalgic, and I feel like I could literally smell all of the things that he talked about.
Yeah.
It was really fun. The next short is called Letter to a Pig. It is set in modern-day Israel. It's about some pretty heavy subject matter. It follows a young student named Alma, a sensitive girl who falls under a surreal lucid dream after a Holocaust survivor comes to her classroom to read a letter to the classroom about a pig that saved his life. The animation fuses 2D traditional hand-drawn and painted animation on paper, and then it's blended with some video segments. I really haven't seen this style of impressionistic animation before. I think there's something really special about it. Similar to the dream in the movie, the film's interpretation is rather ambiguous. Many people in our theater were puzzled by the meaning, and they were discussing, what could the symbolism be? What could this possibly represent? I know we were talking about it quite a bit, trying to find a metaphor or a deeper interpretation. I believe Letter to a Pig is about perhaps collective generational trauma and how we as a people grapple with the pain and choose how to move forward. It's a very interesting short, to say the least.
Yeah, definitely. Our next short we saw was War is Over, inspired by the music of John and Yoko. This is another US short that takes place in an alternative World War I reality where 2 soldiers on opposing sides play a game of chess with a heroic pigeon delivering their chess moves over an increasingly tense battlefield. It's computer animated by Peter Jackson's company, features music by Thomas Newman, and features John Lennon and Yoko Ono's peace anthem, Merry Christmas, War is Over. It's co-written also by John Lennon's son, so a lot of names behind this one. Ultimately, I don't really have a lot to say about it, to be honest. The animation is nice, it's well done. It has a very Pixar professional feel. It's definitely the most optimistic of the block. It's not outwardly bad by any means. The message of the movie just felt kind of overly simplistic, and the short essentially is kind of a setup to what becomes a music video for the song I think we've all heard like 100 times, at this point. It was kind of just aight. It's aight.
Okay, so the next short and the last one we're going to be talking about is Pachyderme or Pachyderme.
I think it's, Pachyderme.
Pachyderme in French, I guess. It's a French poetic short about a woman who is looking back on her childhood visits with her grandparents with both nostalgia and agony. She learns how to ride her bike on these trips. She takes swims in the lake. But as the story unfolds, we learn that there's much more to be fearful of. This film is also about trauma. The animation style makes every frame feel like a beautiful painting. It's a very tranquil film, and there's a lot of unease there and some aspects of like a dark fairy tale. Ultimately, it's a story you can feel where it's headed, but there's an added layer of symbolism surrounding this big tusk and thick-skinned animals.
Yeah.
And I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah, it was really good. It was an interesting one. It really kind of stuck with me. Well, that covers the animated short films. So last year we wrote down our personal rankings just for fun of our shorts and to see how they kind of compared. And so we've done that already. You have yours?
Yeah.
Okay, we haven't seen them yet. Ready? 1, 2, 3. There we go. So what do you got? Our uniform was your number 1?
Yes.
Yeah, we both have Wars over at the bottom, I noticed. But yeah, overall, they're very solid, right?
Yeah. Usually, like, my favorite are the live action. This year, I preferred the animated over the live action.
But that's just our opinion, really. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what we think. What they think, the Academy, is what really matters. So let's talk predictions. Now, you know me, I have to throw out a stat. So going back to 2010, nearly every single winner in this category has been a film either in English or doesn't have dialogue, which is something I tend to not really go against hardly ever if I want to get this right. So this year, only 2 films hit that criteria, which is 95 Senses and War is Over.
Your first and your last choice.
Yes, my first and my last, this should make it very easy then. But it actually is very tricky because there's another strong connection with films. Films that feature a cute animal are oftentimes the winner of this category. And this year, 2 films feature animals, War is Over, a chess move carrying pigeon, and Letter to a Pig features, obviously, a pig. Now, out of all the short categories, I think this is the one that I think is trickiest to predict. Talking with people in our audience afterwards, I felt like there really wasn't a clear consensus on people's favorites. Did you have a favorite?
I actually like the War is Over.
War is Over?
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite?
It's hard to say.
I think that has a lot to do with how exceptionally good all these movies were.
Yeah.
All these films were, so.
So ultimately, if I couldn't get a consensus on a favorite, I need to go with the stats. So I can eliminate Our Uniform and Pachyderme, unfortunately. As good as they were, Our Uniform feels a little maybe too short, and Pachyderme, I feel like maybe the subject doesn't align with what the Oscars typically goes for. So I'm really caught between the other 3. And each have their pros and each have their cons. And all, I don't think, resembles previous winners to a T, really. 95 Senses doesn't have a specific issue behind it. I don't know if the humor is going to gel with a lot of the Academy. War is Over is kind of the most optimistic of the group. It has an animal. It also has John and Yoko's name in the title. And we didn't particularly love it, but I wanted to check Letterboxd to kind of cross-reference to see if we were alone. I checked all the winners,
Okay.
dating back from 2010 to now to kind of compare with this year.
Okay.
Every winner from 2010 to most recent ranged somewhere from the lowest at 3.5 to the highest at 4.1. War is Over currently stands at 2.8.
Oh.
So
We weren't the only ones
we weren't the only ones.
that weren't fond.
Yeah, so that really only leaves Letter to a Pig, and that's popping out a little bit for me. It's got a pig. The animation style feels very inventive. It also surrounds the Holocaust. The challenge is it's in a different language, though the dialogue is brief. It's also abstract, and abstract films don't typically win this category often.
Yeah, it feels more like elevated art. It feels a little abstract, and it kind of reminds me of that abstract film that won 2 years ago or a couple years ago, which was the...
Right, The Windshield Wiper.
Yeah, the windshield wiper.
So my prediction of who's going to win Best Animated Short, it's very tough, but I'm going to have to lean on my stats a little bit. I'm going with an English language film, 95 Senses as it's kind of a good middle ground, I think. Letter of a Pig, I think, stands a really excellent chance as well. War is Over could be the potential dark horse, but I'm leaning towards 95 Senses right now, with Letter of a Pig, I think, being a real huge possibility.
I feel like War is Over is like reminiscent of all the Pixar films that used to win.
Could you see 95 Senses winning at all?
I can't see it right now. I think the thing that worries me is that the main character is divisive.
When you look at previous winners, I don't see a movie like 95 Senses, really.
I don't.
But I don't see a movie like the other ones either too much, except maybe The War is Over. I mean,
So just out of protest because you didn't like it, you won't vote for it. You won't
John
want it.
and Yoko Ono, back in the 60s, they protested against the Vietnam War, and God bless them. And this is my protest.
Also, the other thing is that I audibly heard people in the audience "aw" at the pigeon, which means it's a cute animal. And the pig in Letter to a Pig is not really. I don't think it's a cute. It's a confusing animal. If you had to pick one of these films that you feel is like the most general for broad audiences, for just like normies, which one would you think people would like?
For normies, War is Over. So you're thinking War is Over?
I'm thinking War is Over, just because it's the most like easily digestible. Everyone knows that song. Everyone, you know what I mean?
All
It's
the
just,
older members have their lighters up and they're in the theater swaying. Okay. She's thinking War is Over. I'm thinking 95 Senses. I'm going to have to think it over more. Follow me on Twitter. I might change, but ultimately I'm going to stick right now with 95 Senses. All right, but let's move over to Best Live Action Short Films. All right, so live action short films we immediately saw after the animation films. The first film is from Canada and it's called Invincible. It's based on a true story that recounts the last 48 hours of the life of Marc Antoine Beignet, a 14-year-old boy on a desperate quest for freedom from a juvenile detention center. So Invincible has a very naturalistic style, a fantastic performance at the center, and is very nicely shot with very, contrasty colors. The storytelling unfolds organically and explores the issue of mental health in a very delicate way. Invincible doesn't offer easy answers, but it paints a picture of a boy struggling with his emotions and questions whether detention centers are the answer. Its restraint is probably the film's best quality. I kind of like this one.
yeah, I really like this one too. I thought it was, I could see it being like a feature film.
Yeah, or something that would maybe like screen at like a film festival like Cannes or something.
The second short is called Red, White, and Blue, and I'm sure you can guess by the title where that's from, the US. The story follows a young woman named Rachel, a single parent living paycheck to paycheck, when an unexpected pregnancy threatens to put her livelihood at stake. And she is forced to cross state lines in search of an abortion. This film features a performance from Brittany Snow that you may remember from the Pitch Perfect series. The film initially has a sort of slice of life vibe, but ultimately it hinges on a bomb-dropping twist. This twist will likely be the crux of whether or not you like this film or not, or whether it works for you or not. Red, White, and Blue takes a very clear stance on a very relevant issue, the issue of abortion. For me, it felt a little heavy-handed, to be honest.
Yeah, the twist I don't think really hit me the same way maybe it was intended to. It really just kind of opened the door for more questions I had. And yeah, ultimately, I don't think this will probably change a single mind on the issue too. But we'll talk about this film probably more later. The next short is a Denmark short called Night of Fortune. It centers around an aging man named Carl who visits a morgue to claim the body of his wife and is faced with accepting her death, as well as fixing a flickering fluorescent light. I think this was one of our favorites from the block. There are flourishes of dark comedy and a heart-tugging tale of grief, acceptance, and finding humor in life's darkest moments. The performances are pitch perfect. The cinematography is excellent. I think it appropriately reflects the gloominess of a morgue. It's very endearing and quite funny as well. So yeah, I enjoyed this one.
Yeah, I really liked it too. I appreciated the dark humor.
Yeah.
The next short was The After. It's a short film from the UK. This intense short follows Dayu, played by David Oyelowo, a Londoner rideshare driver who, after witnessing a devastating random attack, has to slowly learn to reconnect himself back into society. It also explores themes of loss and grief, but it's in a less subtle way than in The Night of Fortune. The story is very simple and very dramatic. The leading performance is actually really quite good. The After shares some similarities with Red, White, and Blue, where something really shocking happens. And to me, it just came across a little overly theatrical, and I just couldn't find myself fully invested in the story. It is on Netflix though, so I highly recommend all of you check it out for yourselves.
The final short we saw was The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. You might know this director and this distributor. It's Wes Anderson, and also it's a Netflix film, another one. So based on the beloved story from Roald Dahl, it follows a rich man played by Benedict Cumberbatch. He learns about a guru who can see without using his eyes, so he sets out to master the skill himself in order to cheat at gambling. Of course, this film contains a few famous faces and juggles a few storylines. The production design, it's exceptional, as Anderson's work tends to be, with, very intricate interchanging sets throughout. It has all of Anderson's trademark, including his precision and dry dialogue delivery, but packaged in a very nice, digestible 37-minute bite. Your enjoyment of the short just kind of depends on Wes Anderson and kind of your love for Wes Anderson. This likely isn't going to recruit new fans. Anderson works for you, or he doesn't. That's just as simple as I can put it. I thought this was the best thing he's done since Grand Budapest, so I loved it. But Yvette, you've ranked all these shorts. So have I. We have not talked about our favorites. Let's reveal it on the count of 3. Are you ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Wow. Okay. Night of Fortune's your favorite. I kind of had a feeling it would be. So we're all over the place. We just know that the bottom 2 are Red, White, and Blue, and The After for us. All right, well, in terms of the film I think will win, let's start with the stats. Since 2010, there's been only 2 times a non-English film won this category, so there's definitely some English language bias here. 3 films this year fit that criteria, so we have a lot to choose from. There's a lot of great films this year, but I think it's very difficult to go against The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. Wes Anderson has never won an Oscar before. And I think everyone is aware that, Henry Sugar is part of like this series of excellent shorts on Netflix. So I think it's just an easy way to kind of award all of them in a way. But for what it's worth, I asked people in my screening what they thought, and the responses were very surprising. Did you all have a favorite?
The Red, White, and Blue.
Red, White, and Blue? Did you have a favorite?
I really like Red, White, and Blue.
Who do you think?
I think Red, White, and Blue's good.
Yeah.
I do, because that was it's so contemporary.
Resounding Red, White, and Blue.
Crazy. Nearly everybody we talked to had an overwhelming response
Yeah.
to Red, White, and Blue. And I think it's the issue of abortion, I think, really resonated with this particular audience. The block as a whole was well over 2 hours, and I think the audience described Henry Sugar as just too long. And again, this is just a small audience with the demographic, I would say, leaning older. In the end, I would have to go still, even hearing a resounding Red, White, and Blue throughout the entire theater, I still have to go with A Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. There's multiple Academy Award nominated people in the film. The craft is impeccable. I know Wes Anderson is not likely to be beloved by everybody, and there might be still a few members within the Academy who will refuse to vote for such a high-profile person in the shorts category. But in the end, I can't go against Henry Sugar. It's just not wise, I feel like, too. So my prediction is Henry Sugar, with the spoiler, of course, being Red, White, and Blue.
I'm going to guess Red, White, and Blue just because
You are?
everybody seemed to love it. It was everybody we talked to. We talked to several people in the
She's
theater.
a woman of the people. I mean, that movie, what was that movie called a couple years ago? Skin, remember that one?
Yeah.
It would be like a Skin winner.
Yeah.
All right, well, moving on to our last category, the best documentary shorts. All right, now we've only started watching the documentary shorts, I think a few years ago. We only used to watch live action and animated, but we started doing the documentaries, and with age, I've grown to really appreciate them. So this year, why don't you go ahead and kick us off with the first one?
Sure thing. So the first short was from director Sean Wang, who recently had a film at Sundance, which we reviewed and talked about, and that was called Dee Dee. His documentary is nominated for an Oscar, so he's having a fire year. His documentary is called Nai Wai Po. It's distributed by Disney Plus. This showcases his real Chinese immigrant paternal and maternal grandmothers who now live together and kind of, I guess, take care of each other, going about their daily lives and essentially just hanging out and reflecting on their past and their current life and activities. There are some really cute, funny moments mixed in with some more somber moments. Wang does a really good job of balancing the joy and the sadness of, aging, the things that can be found later in life. And ultimately, I felt like this was a bittersweet love letter to grandparents who are still living their best lives today.
Yes. So it's a cute short.
It's very, very emotional, very cute. I really enjoyed it.
All right. Well, the second short is called An Island in Between, or Island in Between. It's from Taiwan. It explores the country's uncertain future, following filmmaker S. Liu Chiang, who grew up in Taiwan in a small Taiwanese village called Kinmen. It's 2 miles off the coast of China. So Kinmen serves as a front line for escalating tension between Taiwan, China, and US, as well as a symbol of kind of Chiang's identity with being stuck in the middle of these 3 regions. So this is an interesting choice for the Academy. It's a very personal choice for the Academy to choose. While it explores the history and geopolitical tension between Kinmen and China, Chiang kind of weaves his own personal experience with his ideological beliefs. It was laid out nicely. It's shot well. It has an easy kind of flow. But overall, it just kind of felt a little thin, a little kind of dry. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It was straightforward. The third short is a U.S. short called The ABCs of Book Banning, of course, revolving the topic of book banning. This is about the 2,000 books that have been removed from school districts. This short explores the toll that this will take on future generations for depriving the children of the right to read and check out books at the library and learn about the complex world that we all inhabit. This film is a series of interviews, very straightforward interviews with the authors and with the children in these schools. There is no denying that it is a very interesting and relevant topic. I was personally very shocked by some of the books that are being banned, many of which are Pulitzer Prize winners that we've all grown up reading in school. So while it was, very eye-opening to me, my only gripe with the film is the filmmaking and the storytelling. It was really kind of standard, run-of-the-mill, and perhaps a little one-noted.
I would say sometimes felt pretty one-sided. I mean, I know we probably don't need to hear the reason for banning books and free speech. It's crazy, but I really wanted to know what reasons they had, and I wanted the filmmakers to address those reasons too, All right, well, the next documentary short was called The Barber of Little Rock. This explores the widening racial wealth gap and follows Arlo Washington. He's the founder of People's Trust, and he's a local barber who kind of walks us through this visionary approach to having a just economy. The film also features a few other subjects within the community going through their own financial situations. And what I did appreciate is that the short isn't just some dry, completely dry educational piece. It uses real people to explore important issues, redlining and talks about the obstacles they face. However, I do think they could have explained the why a little bit more in detail, why this has happened and getting into the nitty gritty. The film ends with this rally call for change. And I don't know, I wish the story had this more energetic vigor, to ignite their cause. It's an incredibly important subject, and I think Arlo is a subject worth highlighting, but yeah, I just kind of wanted a little bit more from it.
Our last documentary is called The Last Repair Shop, which is about a Los Angeles downtown warehouse and the devoted craftspeople who work there. Their mission is to spread the joy of music by repairing over 80,000 instruments for music students on a regular basis, focusing mostly on 4 stories of people who found a safe haven in music while they were growing up and now are paying it forward, sharing their love for music with the next generation. Every subject in this documentary short was so likable and compassionate. It's a very emotional experience hearing their stories. They all had such impactful stories to tell. It's also very beautifully shot, technically, the film. And being a film about music, it was very fitting that the film would have a beautiful score. Another really great aspect to this short documentary is the symbolism surrounding broken instruments and how beauty can be found even in broken things if there are people out there willing to take the time and care to fix it. I really loved it.
I loved it too. I love the way also that the story was structured. Like essentially you have 8 stories. You have the students' stories and then you have the craftspeople stories. To me, it never felt too much or too cluttered. And I think it's because of how clean and how organized the filmmakers structured the short. And very emotional short, I found too.
Yeah, very endearing. All right, so those are all the shorts for this year. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Should we reveal?
Let's reveal.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Last Repair Shop, number 1 for you. Oh, good.
It's really good.
Oh, same number 2, 1. And then you went ABCs? Okay, you only had 2 off. Well, that's pretty close.
Yeah, I feel like they were all really good. It's hard to rate them.
Okay, but that again, that's just what we think.
Yeah.
But now, what do we think is going to win? So the documentary category, man, they can be very tricky. Since 2010, more than half of the winners have been in English. However, there's been many times that a non-English film has won this category. So I think this category, the winner often needs to be a film that's either A, has lovable subjects, B, it pulls the heartstrings, C, feels important or covers important subjects. I think all the winners kind of fit within that kind of space. Mm-hmm. I think the race is only between, in my opinion, ABC's of Book Banning, The Last Repair Shop, and Nai Wai. I think those are the 3 that I'm really considering. ABC's of Book Banning has the important subject matter, and the other 2 have the lovable subjects.
I would say ABC's of Book Banning has the subject matter, but it's a little dry.
Right.
It doesn't have that like emotional element.
You have to decide whether the Academy is going to go with subject matter or they're going to go with filmmaking.
Yes. I feel like The Last Repair Shop is like the perfect balance of expert filmmaking and emotional pulling the heartstrings. There's a lot there, and it's important subject matter because we care about the education and the arts for future generations.
Yes. So I went to check the old letterbox on this one as well, just to kind of look over what people thought about the film. Average scores for the winners from 2010 to now ranged in around 3.5 to 3.8. All the winners ranged in that score. ABC's of Book Banning has a 3.0. And Nai Wai has a 3.8 on Letterboxd. So, clearly the kids on Letterboxd likes it. The subjects are older too, so that can appeal to maybe the older Academy as well. And, the New York Times reported that the grandmas are going to actually be in attendance for the Oscars. So it could be the lovable subjects that people fell in love with and want to see on stage. I can see that.
Okay, but can you imagine a little orchestra of kids with their little reconstructed, refurbished
Could they please?
Instruments?
Could they please?
Do a little performance at the Oscars? Like, how freaking adorable.
Ultimately, I had to go with the one that was just by far my favorite one. Like, it just was. It might not be the most important issue necessarily, but the subjects are winning and the filmmaking is solid. It's very emotional, at least for me and her. It also has a 3.8 on Letterboxd too, so it's not like an emotional one that no one liked. People liked it. It has the same score of Nai Wai. So my prediction for best documentary short, The Last Repair Shop. I'm going to go Last Repair Shop.
This is my favorite too.
Well, those are our predictions and thoughts on all the Oscar shorts this year. I wanted to kind of keep away from looking at Gold Derby because I didn't want my predictions to be kind of infiltrated. And comparing the predictions I made with their current ones, there's some big differences. So we'll have to see how that pans out. I want to thank Yvette for always coming with me to the Oscar shorts. That was fun. We've been going to these Oscar shorts every year.
Yeah.
We've been going every year.
It's really fun.
Since knowing each other.
For like 10 years.
I know. But I'm happy that you can finally come on and review it with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's so fun.
So if you guys actually wanted to check out some of these shorts, they might be available in a nearby theater. Mm-hmm. But if not, some of these films are actually available online right now, so you can watch them for free.
Yeah, on like YouTube or Netflix.
Yeah, YouTube, Netflix. Will you add descriptions?
Yeah, we'll put it in the description below.
And once you watch it, let us know because we'd love to chat about it. See what you're voting for.
Yeah, and also what you're predicting.
Yeah, what you're predicting. That's what I meant.
Also, this year, along with the experiment, I'm going to be doing a final prediction video in all other categories. So feel free to hit the subscribe button down below. Follow me on Twitter, Letterboxd, links in the bio. Thanks always for watching. And until next time, we'll see you at the Oscars.